Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Department of Arts and Culture Virtual Grants Workshop for the 2021 Arts Internship Program. My name is Martin Hernandez, and I'm the Grants and Professional Development Program Associate. And I do a number of things for the department, but my primary responsibility is the administration of this Arts Internship Program. Really exciting day for us. Today's workshop is brought to you in partnership with the First District Supervisor Hilda L. Solis's office. And I'm thrilled to have a commissioner from the First District to welcome us into the session, Commissioner Helen Hernandez. Welcome, Commissioner, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Martin. It's a real pleasure for me to be here with you this morning. And I'm proud to represent Supervisor Solis, who has been the champion for cultural equity and inclusion for the last 6 years. The arts are a crucial part of our communities in LA County, and continuing to support students in accessing careers in the arts is more important now than ever, especially as we prepare them to be our future leaders. Normally, these workshops take place throughout the region, but the Department of Arts and Culture staff have adjusted the format due to COVID-19, and we're pleased to be able to connect with you virtually to provide the information you need to complete an application successfully, because we want you all to participate. We know how important this funding is for your organizations, especially during this time where many of you have had to make tough decisions around staffing, programming, and more. This year, we are proud to be supporting more than 170 internships at performing, presenting, literary arts, and municipal arts agencies throughout LA County, as well as organizations who have been a part of our LA County as well program, Community Impact Arts Grants. And I just want to share with you today, Supervisor Solis has introduced a motion for a supplemental budget so that the arts internship programs not be cut at all for 2021. So we're very excited about that possibility of moving forward as well. So we're all crossing our fingers and hoping it passes the Board of Supervisors today. The Arts Internship Program has the unique advantage of serving two different purposes. One, our arts organizations gain much needed assistance in the form of a bright, hardworking intern or two or three for 400 hours paid for by the department. I think that's really important. These organizations also get to welcome a new perspective on the work they do day in and day out. And two, students gain valuable on-the-job training and resume building experience that can help them build an understanding of the role of arts administrators while exploring various career paths they may want to pursue one day. Together, these parts add up to a dynamic and exciting program for the field of arts and culture in LA County, as well as for the students who live and go to school here. While the work of the intern is important, so too is their experience. Unlike most of our grants, these dollars come attached to a bright newcomer to our field. We are so grateful that every year our grantees take up the role as mentors and guides to ensure that the intern has the most impactful experience possible. In addition to my role as an arts commissioner, I also have the pleasure and honor of serving as a co-chair of the Cultural Equity and Inclusion Advisory Committee, which works diligently with our communities to expand access to our programs all over Los Angeles County, from Palmdale, Lancaster, to the South Bay, to Santa Monica and Calabasas, all the way to Pomona and Claremont. We're extremely proud of our work in increasing opportunities for community college students as well to participate in the program, more of which Martin will share with you in just a few minutes. Especially now, we must prioritize programs that serve the best interest of our communities. I'm so thankful that we can provide the funding to incredible nonprofit organizations like yours during this critical time, which in turn provides such rich experiences for the interns. With that, I'm pleased to welcome Martin back, who you're gonna love through this whole process, by the way. He is the best, who will guide you through the application process. He will also do his best to answer any and all of your questions and concerns. It was a pleasure being with you today. Good luck with your application.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Hernandez. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here. and welcoming us into the space. So thank you again. Hello, everybody. And thanks so much again for being here. Again, my name is Martin Hernandez. I'm the Professional Development Programs Associate with the Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture. I do want to just reiterate briefly for those of you that are just joining us, we are recording this session. So if you'd like to keep your camera off for the duration of the session, we certainly understand. In terms of questions, if you wouldn't mind, please utilize the chat function. I have a number of points throughout the presentation that I will pause and try to reflect on those chats. So if you have a question, a burning question, feel free to drop it in the chat and I will get to you as soon as possible to answer that question. So the purpose of this workshop is to orient you into the program and to go over all of the requirements for the program, as well as give you some time to think about what might make a successful application. We'll also give you a little preview of what to expect when you access the application online. And as I mentioned before, please feel free to utilize the chat function for your questions and I'll stop periodically to answer those. If you are a returning applicant, you have probably guessed that there are going to be some changes in next year's application. And I'm gonna be really sure to highlight those throughout the presentation as well. And as I mentioned, this session is being recorded. So folks that are not able to attend this session in person or live, excuse me, will be able to access the information later on. Okay, so jumping right in. Before we start talking about the program too much in itself, I'd like to formally begin this session by grounding our conversation with a land acknowledgement. Land acknowledgements invite us to reflect on our shared history, including histories of oppression, marginalization, and survival. As we as a department move forward with our cultural equity and inclusion initiative as the guidepost for everything that we do, this is one piece of an evolving set of practices to acknowledge and honor those whose cultural voices that have not been given space, and to root all of our work, including this presentation, in the spirit of being the change we would like to see in the world. If you'd like, I invite you to follow along with me as I read our statement. The Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture recognizes and acknowledges the first people of this ancestral and unceded territory. With respect to their elders, past and present, and future generations, we recognize the Chumash, Gabrieleño Tangva, and Fernandeño Tataviam, who are still here, and honor with gratitude the land itself and those who have stewarded it throughout the generations. We honor and respect the many indigenous peoples still connected to this land on which we gather, and we commit our work in service to and alignment with these values. Thank you so much, everybody. Okay, so we're gonna start off with a little bit of history and talk through the actual program vision and impact that the program has had thus far. So some backgrounds. Some of you may be familiar with the Getty Foundation's Multicultural Undergraduate Internship Program, which is now the Getty Merrill Internship Program. Our Arts Internship Program is a sister program to the Gettys, which launched in 1993. Our program would launch 7 years later in the year 2000. The two programs have run on parallel tracks and together constitute the largest paid arts internship program in the country. And we are still so grateful to the Getty for their longstanding support of this program, really since the inception. On the screen, you can see the vision statement for the program. This language, which we revised last year, acknowledges that students gain a wide variety of benefits from the experience, whether or not they actually end up pursuing a career in the arts. We believe that through this program, both the experience within your organization as well as the educational opportunities that we provide, students will gain skills that are transferable to contexts inside and outside of the arts. So I do think that that's a hallmark of our program, that while we hope students like what they see and it encourages them to pursue a career in arts administration, we understand that that might not be the outcome for everybody and want to make sure that students are still getting valuable skills out of their experience no matter where they end up. To date, more than 2,500 young people have participated in the program. And one of the wonderful things we've seen in the last decade is an increasing number of former interns who are popping up in leadership positions all over in LA County. We even have former interns that return as mentors for various pieces of the program. Of course, the year 2020 marked the 20th anniversary of the program. Unfortunately, it was not in the environment that I think any of us had hoped, but an important milestone nonetheless. And it actually comes with another important milestone, which is in the 20th year, all of the interns combined and all of the hours worked actually total over 1 million hours worked in contributions to the field, which is really quite something if you think about the people power behind that and how many hours the interns have worked in order to accomplish over 1 million hours for the field. So really exciting for us. Okay, so now you know a little bit about the history of the program, who it's meant to serve, or you know, kind of what some of the goals are. So let's talk about organizational eligibility, excuse me. What are we looking for from organizations that apply for this program in order to make you eligible? So first thing I want to clarify, this is a grant program for organizations, not individuals. So unfortunately, if you are a practicing artist hoping for an extra pair of hands, this is not, unfortunately, a grant intended for individuals. It does go to nonprofit organizations. In terms of nonprofits, what are we looking for? You must have had your 501c3 status for at least 2 years. You must be a nonprofit arts organization that, in terms of the arts, falls into one of these categories: performing, presenting, literary, or municipal arts agencies. It does not include visual arts organizations or museums, and that's because that is the Getty's internship program focus. So the Getty program is specifically provides internships to visual arts organizations and museums. And so any organization that falls under those categories would be encouraged to apply to the Getty's program. It's very similar, 400 hours from the intern. All of the things you're gonna hear from me today, the Getty program does in a similar format, but their focus is the visual arts organizations and museums. So our county program is geared towards everybody else. And just because it does, we do get the question sometimes, you are eligible to be a grantee of both programs in the event that you are a multi-dis organization. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. You are not, cannot be part of a college or university, but you can be a fiscally sponsored organization and apply for this program as long as your fiscal sponsor is willing and able to handle all payments and contracting that is required by the program. So important note there. This is, of course, a county program, so you must be based in LA County, meaning that you're physically located here and that your mission is to serve residents of this region. So really important that you are based here and that you're actually creating programming for the residents of the county. You must be an actively functioning organization, meaning that you have board members that meet regularly, with more than half of your board members living here in California. You must also put on a minimum of 4 programs or performances per year, and of course adhere to all applicable labor laws. Please note, we say minimum of 4 public. This is virtual or otherwise, obviously, given the state of the world. And so, you know, we're just looking to see that your organization is actually producing programming for the people of Los Angeles County, whatever that looks like to you. And so there are some points of the application that we'll try to get at some of that. For the second year, we are inviting grantees of our Community Impact Arts Grant Program, also known as CIAG, to apply as long as they are in good standing with the CIAG grant and have current arts programming. These organizations are social justice and social service organizations, so they're not arts organizations, but they have arts programming as part of the work that they do in their communities. And so they're able to apply, those organizations are able to apply for arts interns as long as the internship is rooted in the organization's arts programming. Last year was the first year that we opened this up to our CIAG grantees, and we were really just wowed with the proposals and are excited to hear feedback from how the student experience is for this coming year. Before I head out, before I move on, oh, sorry, one more slide. Ineligible organizations, I mentioned some of this, cannot be part of a college or university. Just want to make sure we iterate that. Museum or visual arts organizations, we are encouraging you to apply for the Getty program as opposed to ours. I do want to note that for us, if you are an OGP grantee, if you're a grantee of our organizational grant program, also known as OGP, that's really what we're looking at in terms of determining your eligibility. So if you apply to OGP as a visual arts organization, you are ineligible for our program. If you apply for OGP and are awarded as a multi-dis organization that has some visual arts programming, but also has other kinds of programming, you would be eligible for the grant. So we do kind of tie it for our returning applicants, it's tied to your OGP application and how you're applying there. So just something to consider as your organization is moving forward with applications. I am going to take a brief second to pause before I move on. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop that into the chat, and I'd be happy to take them if there's any questions so far. Okay, doesn't look like we have questions, so I'm going to keep moving forward. All right, so grant amounts and awards. Let's talk a little bit about what you get in the event that your organization is actually awarded. So each organization will be awarded anywhere between $6,000 to $6,750 per intern. This grant is meant to be used to hire an undergraduate intern for the 400 hours during the duration of your project. How much you are eligible for really ultimately depends on your budget size. So we're gonna walk through this table here on this slide, and I'm actually gonna start up here at the top. So this table breaks down the size of awards based on your organization budget size. As you can see, an organization with a budget of under $500,000 is allowed to request a maximum of 2 interns, which would yield a maximum grant amount of $13,500. So this is this first category here. Budget under $500,000, 1 or 2 interns, $6,750 per intern for a total of $1,350. If we're moving down, organizations with budgets between $500,000 and $1 million are allowed to request a maximum of 3 interns, which would yield a maximum grant amount award of $20,250. So again, budgets between $500,000 and $1 million, you can request up to 3 interns. So that's the difference between these two categories, at a maximum of $6,750 per intern for a total of $20,250. Before I go on, I want to note that organizations with budgets under $1 million will receive an additional $750 administrative stipend per position to help offset additional costs of hosting an intern. This can include things like purchasing equipment, covering payroll tax, mileage reimbursement, etc. And we're going to talk more about that later. But that you'll notice that this is really what pertains to these first 2 categories, right? So per intern, you're looking at $6,750 per intern. $6,000 goes out the door into the pocket of the intern, and then $750 is retained by your organization for offsetting some of those costs. This is different from previous years, both in the amount. We've increased it from to $750 from $500, which is where it was for many years, if not since the beginning of the program, and in the number of organizations who are eligible to receive it. So previously, only organizations with budget size of $500,000 or less used to receive this stipend. So we both increased the amount of the administrative stipend, as well as increased the type of organization that is eligible to receive it. And so we hope that that's a welcome change to the program. Finally, for organizations with budgets over $1 million, of course, they can request up to 3 interns for as well for a maximum grant of $18,000. Organizations with budgets over $1 million are not eligible to receive the $750 administrative stipend. However, we did eliminate the cash match that used to exist for large budget organizations. And again, we hope that's a welcome change. So previously, if you had a budget over X number of dollars, we would actually not cover the full amount of paying the intern, the full $6,000. We would expect your organization to match us. And so, you know, a lot of the work that we did when kind of evaluating the program guidelines for this coming year, given COVID, given what we know is the, you know, long-term financial impact on many of your organizations, we bumped up the administrative stipend. We made more organizations eligible to receive it, and we eliminated that cash match for the larger organizations. So even the large budget organizations will get enough money to cover the expense of the intern. So what you're going to notice is here in these 2 categories, there's a note here about regarding organizations who request the maximum number of positions, so 3 internships. So let's talk a little bit about that. In 2017, the Board of Supervisors passed the Cultural Equity and Inclusion Initiative that instructed our department to look into the ways we could expand our programming to be more equitable and inclusive to all folks in the region. As part of that initiative, the internship program was expanded from 132 positions, which it had been at for many years, to 178 positions. This allowed organizations for the first time to request up to 3 interns. However, that expansion came with a mandate that every year of the total internship pool, at least 28 positions need to go to students at the community colleges who had traditionally been underrepresented in our program. As such, if your organization is requesting 3 interns, you must be prepared to reserve at least one of those positions for a community college student if you are awarded. Now, this doesn't mean that you will be required to reserve a position for the community college student, but if you are requesting 3 positions, then it means you can be called upon to do so. Your organization will get to choose which of the 3 positions will go to a community college student if we select you as a host, and we will of course work with your organization in the event that your recruitment efforts do not yield a community college applicant. Ultimately, that's where our way of saying if you're unable to recruit a student from the community colleges, we will not take your grant away or impact you. We'll work with you on that. Since the initiative was introduced, I'm happy to report that we've seen quite the increase in community college students into the program from previous years. What I can share is that prior to 2018, I think the maximum number of community college students we had in the program in 1 year was 10. In the first year of the initiative in 2018, we had 41 community college students in the program. Last year, in the second year of the program, 2019, or in the year of the initiative, second year, we had 48 community college students in the program. The jury is still out on what this year is looking like, but I believe we're on track to hit that 28 number, even given a pandemic. So, you know, we're really proud about this work, really happy to be doing this work. The students really get a lot out of this program. And we're building really impactful relationships with the community colleges. So we really appreciate our grantee organizations joining us in that effort. Regardless of the size of your grant award, all interns are to be paid the same amount. All interns are paid $6,000 at the rate of $15 per hour. And interns are allowed to work anywhere between 15 to 40 hours per week, okay? So I just want to point out that, you know, we know with the minimum wage increase, this program has over the past couple of years slowly been increasing the stipend to intern to be on track with the county minimum wage. That obviously topped out at $15 an hour last year. We understand that the county has rules and regulations about you know, what size budget organizations and how long you have to scale up to the $15 an hour. This program does not account for that. No matter what your organization size is and what your minimum wage might be at this time, the intern is expected to be making $15 an hour regardless. And we're very clear about that. So in the event that it's not happening, we always find out. So please just be mindful of that. As I mentioned before, one of the things that is a big change for the program is the longer timeline, and we're going to go over that in just a minute. But the interns are able to work as low as 15 hours a week and as much as 40 hours a week. This does not include overtime. Your grant does not cover that, and we'll talk more about that in a second. But you will need to plan for additional costs like recruitment, parking reimbursement, mileage in the event that we're on site next year for the internship program. Those are things that you would have to be factoring in. Another frequent question that we get is, where do taxes fit into all of this? Ultimately, this is a grant to the organization, not the intern. So the intern is most likely going to be hired by your organization as a regular employee. As such, the intern will receive $6,000 minus payroll taxes. If you do not have a payroll service and you pay your intern the full amount, you will need to issue a 1099 to them at the end of the year. Payroll is highly recommended for all organizations given AB5. We're not legal experts. We are not legal counsel. So it's up to your organization to make sure that you're complying with AB5 as well as all other applicable labor laws when hiring the intern. And you're going to want to make sure that you have a clear idea of what that looks like before you begin your recruitment. And one thing I'll just note here on this slide, these additional costs like recruitment, employer taxes, parking reimbursement, etc. Again, if your organization qualifies for that $750 administrative stipend, that's a great place to draw from to help offset some of these costs that your organization might incur for being in the program. Before we move on, I'm going to pause one more time. If you have a question, please feel free to drop it in the chat. Okay, I'm crushing it. No questions. So we're going to move right along. All right, so now let's talk about program requirements, timeline, and intern eligibility. So we talked earlier about organizational eligibility requirements, but there are some other things that we're looking for in addition to just being a functioning arts nonprofit in order to participate in this program. Ultimately, we're really looking for organizations who are truly able to take on an intern during the program, meaning that the student is not going to be banished to a desk in the closet or a desk in their house virtually, depending on what we're looking at next year, to fend for themselves. Capacity to recruit, select, train, and mentor an intern is paramount. Last year, we added a new question regarding your organization's approach to mentoring the intern, and the panel does look closely at that to get a sense of how your organization will approach the program. There is also some paperwork involved with the process, not a ton, but we are, after all, a government agency. Also, any organization that is new to the program is required to attend our supervisor orientation that will be held at the Getty. As I mentioned, they've been our partners since the year 2000, and we do this in joint partnership with them every year. I know some people are like, oh, required supervisor orientation. I don't know how I feel about that, but we get really great feedback from participants year after year, and we work really hard to make sure that it's an informational event for everybody in attendance. Okay, so moving forward to the program timeline. We are, of course, over here on the left in the application period. The application will close on Wednesday, October 28th, 2020 at 11:59 p.m., at which point we will move into the review of applications with the goal of hosting our panel in December or January. So you can see that panel is listed right here. Fingers crossed it's happening in December. I just want to note that the application deadline has absolutely no exceptions. So we'll talk about some tips and tricks towards the end of this presentation, but please note that October 28th, 11:59 p.m., if your application is not submitted, it will not be considered as part of the panel review process. So applications closed. December, we host the panel. And we're hoping that this will allow us to let your organizations know by the middle of February about grant decision. So whether or not, you know, your application was awarded and the next steps into moving onto contracting. So next to the changes in grant amounts, like I mentioned earlier, the increase in the administrative stipend, the removal of the cash matches, the changes to the timeline is the biggest change in the program in the past 20 years. And any organizations who were a part of the 2020 program this year got a sneak peek of what I'm about to explain. So once we move past contracting, so contracts will be due by March 5th of 2021. April 1st, 2021 will be the first launch date for positions to go on the website. And I'll talk a little bit more about launch dates in a minute. But in the application, you will choose which first of the month you would like your position launched to our website so that you can begin recruitment. April 1st is the first launch date of the program, meaning any organizations who wanted their positions posted on April 1st will be able to begin recruitment on that day. The earliest an intern will be able to begin their internship is May 31st, 2021. And of course, all 400 hours of the internship must be completed by March 1st, 2022. So when you are filling out the application, you are proposing a project that will occur anywhere between May 31st, 2021 and March 1st of 2022. You have that window of time in which to propose your project, with the first positions being posted on April 1st. And we're gonna break that down as well in a minute. So again, timeline has the most substantial changes to the program. For those of you that have known the program or have been a part of it in previous years, you will know that this has been for 20 years a summer internship program. COVID came by and said, not in 2020. And we're just gonna go ahead and keep that format for next year in 2021 and make it more of a year-round type program. So let's talk about intern eligibility. Who can you hire? Candidates must be currently enrolled undergraduates, either in four-year universities or community colleges. We define enrolled as being signed up for at least one class at the time of application. Now, this year I've had a lot of really tenacious students who have said, Martin, I'm enrolled at USC, I'm just not taking any classes. And while we appreciate the wordsmithery, ultimately we are looking to provide these internships to students that are currently enrolled taking classes at the time that they are applying to your organizations. Now, there is one exception. We do allow recent graduates of the program, or recent graduates, as long as they have graduated between May 1st and December 1st of 2021. So most commonly, there are students who graduate in June or July, they're finishing up their coursework, and an organization will want to hire them because they can work full time, they don't, they're done with school, maybe they're looking to hire the intern afterwards. So either currently enrolled at the time of applying for your internship, meaning that they're in at least one class, or they must have just recently graduated between May 1st and December 1st of 2021. In addition, they must either reside in or attend school in LA County. So if I am a student who is from LA, but I go to school in Boston, I'm eligible because I have an address of residence here in LA County. In the reverse, if I am from Boston, but I go to school at UCLA, I am eligible because I go to school in LA County, even though my residence is elsewhere. So we're really looking for, are they enrolled, or did they just recently graduate between May 1st and December 1st of 2021? And what is their residency status? Are they either a resident of LA that lives, that is from elsewhere? Sorry, resident of LA that goes to school elsewhere, or are they a resident of somewhere else but go to school in LA County? Those are the two things that you will be submitting to our department for review in order to get your candidate approved. Most of the time, they're both, right? They go to school in LA County and they are from LA County, and that's totally fine. We welcome that. We just want to make sure that ultimately these internships are going to students who have a foundation somewhere in LA County, because this is a county program. Candidates may not have a bachelor's degree or a higher degree, so we're really looking for undergraduates. They may not have previously participated in our internship program. It is a one-off opportunity so that we have as many students get to access the internship as possible. And really importantly, they must not be a previous staff member or a relative of a staff or board member in your organization. So one thing that has a tendency to happen a lot is, especially when I'm on campuses at community colleges and talking about these internships, I get a lot of feedback and a lot of concerns from students who will say, Martin, they're not going to pick me from the community colleges. They're probably picking their friends or their relatives. And it's really important for me to be able to say that actually that's not allowed as part of the guidelines. And I want to be clear, if you have a relative or, there's a previous staff member who qualifies, who's interested in the program, they can participate in the program, just not at your organization. And so, that is something that comes up a lot as I'm talking to students. They are concerned about who's actually accessing these opportunities. For this note here about having previously participated in the arts internship program, we have a list of all over 2,500 interns that have ever participated in the program, and you're actually submitting the intern for approval to me before they start in the program, and I'm running their name through that database to just make sure that they haven't participated before. So we're the final check where we ask our organizations to make like a preliminary offer to an intern conditioned upon our approval. And so I will let your organization know, hey, it looks like this student participated last year. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to let them know they're ineligible. 99% of the time, we don't have that issue, as our organizations have a tendency to ask during the eligibility or during the interview process. So we're about to do a deep dive into the structure of your internship proposals, but first I want to be clear about two things. And again, one of these is really steeped in a major change for the program. So because of the uncertainty of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are asking you to submit internship proposals that can be completed either on-site or remotely, so that these positions can be completed no matter what the public health guidelines are at around this time next year. If you're participating in the program this year, you know that many of our organizations are not allowed to be open at the moment, which has meant that nearly all of our interns are working remotely. To accommodate that, we needed organizations to rework their positions in advance of posting. We are desperately trying to get ahead of that next year by having your organization consider now, at the time of application, proposals that can adapt no matter the public health guidance at the time. I, like you, I'm sure, wish that I had a crystal ball that I could look into and understand what the world will look like starting from May 31st, 2021 until March 1st of 2022, but that's just not possible. Because of the way that the pandemic hit and when it hit this year, myself and the team and all of our grantees had to scramble to rework over 170 positions that could be worked remotely as organizations started to get their feet wet and understand what their organization was going to be doing in this new world that we're in during the pandemic. So again, we have taken that flexibility and are asking your organizations to do the work of proposing something that can withstand no matter what happens next year, because having 140 organizations, over 180 positions, do an emergency rework given whatever we're up against in May is really crazy making, not only for our really small team of me, but I also know it was very difficult for the grantee organizations. So again, I just want to be clear, whatever you are proposing as part of this year's application must be a position that can be worked either on site or remotely next year. So that's new. We've never asked you to do that before. In fact, the program for 20 years has never allowed remote work. We've had many grantees ask, oh, can my intern just work from home, and we've always said no. So obviously because of the pandemic, our hands are tied. We want to make sure that flexibility is available to you all, but we need your organizations to do the work of pre-planning. Okay, we want them to do development, but what is development going to look like if we're still, in some form of lockdown, or we're still, quarantine, versus what would it look like if they're able to come into the office? My sense is that for most people, the position can kind of adapt regardless. Maybe they're teaching a class in person or they're teaching a class virtually, but we really need your organizations to do that work now, so that no matter what happens in May, we can launch your position whenever you say you're ready to launch it, and we can move forward without any issues or having to rewrite the job descriptions. Okay, sorry for that lengthy note. The second thing is that, and this is not different, this has actually always been the case for the program, but all equipment an intern needs to complete the internship must be provided by the organization. And this is regardless of whether or not the intern is going to be working remotely or working on site. Most commonly, this takes the form of a company issued laptop or computer. And I just want to remind you all that for organizations that qualify for the administrative stipend, this is another arena where you're able to use that $750. And I would actually say that that's probably the most common usage for the administrative stipend, is to just purchase a laptop so that the intern can have it and use it during the year. So very important that you know about that and make that accommodation for the interns. Okay, so the 400 hours, our new format gives your organization great flexibility in the project that you are proposing, but it will require significant advanced planning. And I'm going to walk us through that in a second. But in the application, your organization is going to choose a couple of things. The first is the launch date of the position, which is when you can officially begin recruitment. As I mentioned, April 1st is the earliest that can happen. But you will have all the way through December in order to pick those launching dates, depending on when the internship project is happening. You will also pick how many interns how many hours a week the intern will be working. Again, anywhere between 15 to 40 hours a week. Your start date or your recruitment date, your launch date plus the amount of hours that your intern is working per week should help determine the start and the end dates for the intern. As I mentioned before, this is the largest change to the program, which up till now was exclusively a summer program, where the interns had to complete their 400 hours in a 12-week window between June and August. So again, with this change, your organization has much greater flexibility in terms of the type of internship project you want to propose. However, it will require more advanced planning. So let's give an example. Let's say an organization has a project beginning in June, but that project ends in September. So they want their intern to start as early as possible, which would be May 31st. That organization has decided that their intern will be working 15 hours a week, and it will launch. So recruitment will begin on April 1st so that they can try to get somebody ready to go by the May 31st start date. 400 hours at 15 hours a week is a 27-week internship, meaning that intern will not complete their hours until the first or second week of December. If the organization has not planned properly, then the intern may not have enough work after September in order to complete the program. So again, you want to be strategic about the project that you're proposing. If an intern is only supposed to be working from June, July, August, and September, then they need to be working more than, and you want them to end by the end of September, then they need to be working more than 15 hours a week, right? That's probably a 25 or so hour internship in order to be done by the end of September. So just something to keep in mind. Similarly, an intern cannot start a 15-hour-a-week internship in December because that internship would end at the end of June. Right? So again, you have a flexibility in terms of what the proposal is, the months between, May 31st and March 1st, 2022 that, an intern can work, but you have to think about the launch date. How many hours of work per week are they going to be working? And then what would be the start and the end dates based off of that number amount? So as you can see, it's crucial for your organization to think through the intern project, how many hours you want the intern to work a week, start and end dates, as well as the time it will take to recruit students. It is the responsibility of the organization to track the intern hours and work with the student to ensure that all 400 hours are completed by March 1st of 2022. And there will be no flexibility with that March 1st, 2022 deadline. If there are hours left on the table at that point, your organization would be required to refund that money back to the intern, or excuse me, back to us. I do see a question here in the chat, so I want to read it out loud. With our remote physical proposal, if public health guidelines lift next year, but the company doesn't feel equipped to go physical, would you still allow the interns to work remotely? Great question. I think that's something that we're going to have to cross the bridge next year when we come to it, but my sense is that the answer would be yes, right? So we know that even in the best of circumstances, let's say that the county reopens everything, right, tomorrow, every organization is going to have to determine for themselves whether or not that's actually safe. Do you have PPE? Do you have the air filtration, all of that? So my sense would be yes, because again, if it's a question of like not having the intern work at all versus giving you that flexibility, that would be fine. Really what it's going to boil down to is with your interns kind of getting a sense from them about what their comfortability level is. One thing I'm also preparing for is we may have a county-wide mandate that organizations are allowed to be open, but we may have a particular intern or many that have elderly family members that they're taking care of, or high risk folks in their families or in their circles that they want to protect. And so I'm actually seeing that in the reverse. Like, what if the public guidelines are open, but the student doesn't feel comfortable? Again, that is something that we would want to support you all in, both the intern as well as the organization. So my sense is that we would be flexible at that time. Okay, next question. If I request a total of 2 interns for 2 different projects and only awarded 1 intern, can our organization choose which project would be preferred? How do you determine if 2 will be awarded if a budget is under $500,000? So that second question we're going to get to in a little bit. I'm going to talk about the review process. Each of your individual proposals is evaluated as its own, on the strength of its own application. So we will let you know which position is awarded or which isn't. Again, because I'm going to talk about what our review process is looking like and why we balance, what we're looking to balance. So the first part of your question is, no, we will let you know which position is funded, and we would ask that you not switch. And we're gonna get to the review criteria in just a moment. Great questions, everybody. Thank you so much. Okay, moving right along. Just important to note here, in any event where an intern is required to work more than 8 hours a day or more than 40 hours a week, the overtime must be paid to the intern. And just note, our grant, the $6,000 is not inclusive of overtime pay. If you wanted to use the administrative stipend, if your organization is open to that or eligible for that, then you're able to use that for overtime pay. But the grant itself does not account for overtime pay, and it would be required to pay that to the interns. One thing to note is that flexing of hours is not allowed. So it's very common for us to hear from organizations or from interns that say, well, I worked a 10-hour day today, so I'm just gonna work a 6-hour day tomorrow. That is not allowed. It's illegal for practice as far as HR law is concerned. And one thing I want to just reiterate is that this is ultimately a mentorship program, right? So we're trying to show interns what their rights are as employees and what they should be expecting out of their workplaces. And we would want them to know that, hey, in the future, if you're being asked to flex your hours in this kind of way, it's actually not allowed. So please make sure that that is not happening at your organization. We strongly discourage organizations from allowing an intern to take off time for vacations or other extended trips, as it will ultimately affect your originally proposed timeline. Again, now that the program is much longer form, it's not just the summer, you have more flexibility if that's something that you would want to allow for the intern. But my sense is that you all are going to be doing some pretty careful planning. And so an intern that needs to take off or wants to take off for some kind of trip or something, could really throw off that timeline. This does not mean that things are not going to come up. We know that there's emergencies. We know that there are things that are out of our control or the intern's control. We would want you to work with them on that. But it is highly encouraged that you just kind of put that down during the interview process, that you're not, it's important to have an intern that can just work the hours and not take any time off during that. Obviously for national holidays or company holidays, we ask that you follow the organizational protocol and treat your intern as other employees or contractors would be. So if they are off, if your office is off for the holidays, and that's what all employees get, then we ask that you extend that to the interns, depending on when the internship project is happening. So if you're proposing a project that is just happening in the summer, then maybe you're only worrying about the 4th of July holiday. If you are planning into the winter times, then maybe you're having to think about some of the Jewish holidays or Christmas and New Year's, all of that kind of stuff. So things that you're going to want to keep in mind in your planning. So again, things to keep in mind as part of your proposal. Does your proposal overlap with the school year? If the answer is yes, an intern will need to balance school and work, and it's highly unlikely that they're going to be able to work 30 to 40 hours a week if they're doing that, right? So again, if you're really looking to have an intern start in the summer, but move and continue working onto a project into the fall, which is when they go back to school, that's really going to affect their hours, right? So something that you want to keep in mind. You must factor in time for recruitment. And we ask that you do not start your, do not launch your positions more than 2 months in advance of the start date. So again, in the example that I gave earlier, maybe you have an organization that's really looking to start as soon as possible. So May 31st, 2021, you want the intern there starting to do work, then you're probably launching on April 1st, the earliest launch date, so that you have plenty of time to get things going. That's about a 2-month recruitment window. Students do not have to have previous experience in the arts, so you can cast a wide net. Many of our grantee organizations have connections with art schools or arts programs at different schools. That's totally fine. But the program does not require that a student be majoring in the arts. We've had students in business, pre-med, math, you name it, they've been in the program. So you can cast a really wide net. And there are a lot of students, particularly in like business and marketing, that really gravitate to a lot of these opportunities, and you would be welcomed to hire them. And then in addition, the interns will have the opportunity to participate in educational events. All of those dates are to be determined as we're also grappling with how to plan in the middle of a pandemic. That will be paid as part of their 400 hours. So as it's functioning this year, we have 2 to 3 virtual events per month that the interns can attend as part of their internship. And anything that they're attending is to be paid as part of their internship hours. So that will help, hopefully track them towards their getting those 400 hours complete. The Arts Department is committed to cultural equity and inclusion, and all participating organizations are strongly encouraged to recruit and select students of diverse backgrounds, including students with disabilities. So we hope again that you guys are casting a wide net. As I mentioned earlier, these are the launch dates. April 1st, 2021 being the first, all the way through December 1st, 2021. I just want to note again, in November, December, even really October, you should not be launching a 15-hour-a-week internship, right? Because it's going to take them 27 weeks to complete that internship. These are students that are probably in school at this point, meaning that they're probably gonna have to work 15, maybe 20 hours a week. So if you are looking to have an intern work 400 hours at 15 hours a week, you really should be launching sooner rather than later to give yourself plenty of time to complete the hours by March 1st, 2022. Okay. I'll pause one more time for questions. We're gonna get into the review panel in just a second. So Tracy, that'll help me answer your questions that you asked, but are there any other questions before I move on? Okay, so moving on now, that constitutes the basics of kind of like the program eligibility and how it works. So now I want to pivot by discussing some elements that we want you to consider when crafting a successful internship proposal. Now it's, very likely that many of us may have been interns at one point. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with me in the chat, what would you say is one aspect to a successful internship experience? Whatever comes to mind. Think about internships that you've had in the past that, maybe have gone really well. What would you say is one thing that kind of made that internship experience really successful? Just go ahead and drop that into the chat. Good communication, definitely. And I think in the era of COVID, that's a little challenging, right? I think how do you support an intern when everything is through the computer, right? So yeah, good communication, definitely essential. Every task has an educational aspect for the intern's advantage in addition to helping the company. Yes, and that takes pre-planning, right? So, okay, we want this intern to do this project, but what are they actually learning at every step of the way, and how do we be intentional about that? Wonderful suggestions. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I asked that question because some of the things that we're about to talk about right now, really we're asking you to kind of use that gut check. We're asking you to step into the shoes of an intern and really think through what would be useful for them, what would be helpful for them, what would be supportive to them. And I think that when the panel reviews applications that really tackle those questions, it really comes through in the application. So just kind of keeping in the back of your mind, what is that gut check? If I was an intern and I was doing this work, or I was given this work in that way, would that be helpful for me? Would I have everything that I need? Those are the questions that we kind of want you to consider. Successful projects can run the gamut, but usually fall into the categories you see here on your screen. Ultimately, we want proposals that are substantive. They shouldn't be a backlog of projects that everyone else has avoided. And we want to make sure that and ideally it has some kind of beginning, middle, and end, right? So they're ramping up when they first join. There's some middle parts that build upon that experience and then end with some kind of wrap up. I mean, ideally that's kind of really what we're looking for and what the panel is looking for. We use the example of filing a lot. So like ultimately, and of course this all, hinges on in-person or remote internships, but we understand that we don't want an intern standing in front of a filing cabinet all day long, but we understand that all positions will require some level of busy work. We're not saying there can't be any, but it should not constitute the majority of the internship project. One just really important note that a really common mistake that we see in these applications is the framing of a proposal for an internship as filling a staffing gap, right? So we know, especially right now, that organizations have a lot of need. Maybe you've had to let, somebody go over the past couple of months that was, doing essential services. And so, as you're planning for what would be helpful next year, of course, like we would love to have an intern help us out with this, but that can be really overwhelming for an intern, right? To step in and be like, okay, marketing plan from the ground up, and who are we reaching out to, and what are your deliverables, and what are your, that's a lot. And so, and it comes across in the application almost every single time. We can see, wow, this organization actually needs a staff person, and they're writing this position as a staffing, with a staffing gap in mind. And we really want to make sure that you're avoiding that, because it can be very overwhelming for the intern and lead to having a not successful internship experience. So in addition to being rooted in a clear project, please consider some of these additional elements. So clear learning objectives. What does it mean for it to be meaningful on the job training and work experience on the job, maybe virtual next year, depending on where we're at. Excellent communication between the intern and supervisor. How are you making sure and building in time to check in with them? The concrete project, the adequate workspace. If they're on site, do they have their own desk? Are they, do they have easy access to you or whoever as their supervisor, right? As part of that. Sufficiently challenging responsibilities. So kind of on the reverse end, we don't want, again, that busy work piece. We want to make sure that we're avoiding that, as well as integration into organization via a well thought out orientation, right? So from the jump, how are you bringing them onto the team? Who are they meeting? Who are they getting a chance to talk to? What are they reading maybe to prepare themselves? We really want to see this thought out in the application. And I will just note that there are questions in the application that will prompt you specifically for some of these, to speak to some of these things for the intern. So in terms of where to go for ideas, our website, actually, because of the way that the program has worked this year, we're actually still in the process of launching positions for the 2020 program. So that's a great way. If you're new to the program or you're just wondering about where to get ideas, you can go to our website. This is the link, and I'm actually going to go ahead and drop this in the chat. So it's easy for everybody to access. This is the link to where you can access this year's internship positions, and it's a great way to kind of go see what other of your arts nonprofit colleagues, what positions they're requesting, how they talk about the position. It's a really great way to kind of get ideas if that's something that you're if you're looking for. But please note that the position descriptions that you're seeing on the website are brief, and they're really for marketing and recruitment purposes only. The application provides significantly more space for you to flesh out things like the learning objectives and all of that stuff. So there's a lot that went into each of those applications that you're not seeing on the website that you would be expected to speak to as part of the application. So just an important note there. So Tracy, this is going to get us into answering the questions that you asked just a minute ago. I want to talk a little bit about our review process, and then briefly go into the deadlines. And we're headed into the tail end of the application, or of the presentation here. So please bear with me. So in terms of review process and deadlines, panelists are ultimately going to be looking in each application. And Tracy, this does not vary between budget sizes. This is for everybody. Panelists are looking for evidence that you have given some thought to what your intern will be doing during the program year, and how they will be doing, what they will be doing will benefit them. What meaningful and transferable skills will they learn? As a result, we do ask that you identify a specific primary project for the intern and tell us what the project is. We know that taking on an intern is an investment, so you could have a really amazing project, but you must also have the time and the capacity to take care of, support, and mentor your intern. As I mentioned before, one of the most consistent critiques we hear from interns is, I love my organization and they do great work, but they don't need an intern, they need more staff. So there's a balancing act required here. We want you to give the interns a meaningful experience while also recognizing that they're ultimately signing up for a short-term commitment. If you've participated before in the program, panelists will also consider the organization's history with the program, and specifically whether there have been issues in the past regarding supervision or payment to the intern. All applications will go through 2 levels of review. The first level of review is aimed at assessing the strength of the application and how well it meets the goals of the program. The second level of review is aimed at finalizing the pool based on a number of competing factors that you can see here on this slide. They include things like the community served, geography, where the internship is located, discipline, cultural tradition represented, organizational budget type, type of internship project, interest, and the interest and capacity to recruit and host community college students. So earlier when I got the question about, hey, if we request a marketing and development, a marketing and programs position, and the panel awards us the marketing position, but not the program position, can we switch them? The answer is no, because sometimes we're rejecting positions, let's say like in marketing, because over 170 positions, 70 positions that were requested are in marketing. And we want to make sure that there's enough of different types of positions to go around. And that we don't have just 100 something positions in marketing. So that's why it would be really important for your organization to stick to whatever you're awarded, because that second level of panel review is really trying to make an equal balance as much as possible. It's not, not a perfect science, but as much as possible, we have internships in all different parts of the county. We have all different types of disciplines represented. We have all different types of internship projects represented. We have all different types of cultural traditions represented. And so it may be that you submit a really bang up proposal that has really nothing wrong with it, but in order to kind of strike this balance that we're looking for in the program as a whole, we had to deny or accept or award one of your positions based off of these factors for the pool as a whole. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense. If you are a grantee of our organizational grant program, a current grantee, or you have been awarded the internship grant in the year prior, so for this conversation, you're currently an awardee of the internship program, you get to skip a lot of different things. So by virtue of being a part of the OGP program or Arts Internship program before, we kind of know you, we know that your organization is stable, and so you get to kind of skip this part. If you're a new grantee, meaning that you've never participated in the Arts Internship program before, or you're not a current grantee of the organizational grant program, we will require some additional documentation. And so that's what I'm going to go through here. First and foremost, you will be asked to produce a copy of your organization's 501c3 determination letter. In terms of financials, we are going to be looking for one of the following. Either a copy of the organization's SMU Data Arts OGP Funder Report, which is recommended if you have it, which is described in more detail in our guidelines, or a copy of an audited financial statement, or a financial report prepared by an accountant and signed by the board president or chair, or signed federal tax returns. So really we're looking for one of the three of these. In addition, so this is number 3, we're looking for one copy of the organization's list of board members, including names, professional affiliations, place of residence, and with officers identified by title. And last but not least, a copy of a history and background of the organization, no more than 2 pages, single space, that includes the mission and purpose of the organization, a brief history of the organization, including major accomplishments, a description of the organization's constituency or community, a brief description of the administrative infrastructure of the organization, including the number of employees and reporting structure, and a list of notable programming or projects. And for CIAG grantees, if this is your first time applying, you will need to include a description of current arts programming. So what is it that your organization does that is steeped in the arts? So again, if you have been a grantee of this program in the year 2020, and or you are a current grantee of the organizational grant program, you do not need to submit these documents. However, if you are a new grantee or you've been out of the OGP cycle or internship cycle for a couple of years, you will be asked to provide these documents. In terms of the application itself, the full list of questions is available on our website, but I wanted to just lift up some key questions that are most scrutinized in the application, and you can see them here on the slide. The first question here is really about the project, and this constitutes the bulk of the proposal and is heavily reviewed. So you're definitely going to want to spend a lot of time in that question. Question number 2, this additional duties, what else might the intern be doing and getting exposure to? For smaller organizations, this could mean a lot. It could mean that, you know, just because everybody wears all kinds of hats and everybody has to do a little bit of everything, this is where you're going to want to explain that. And that could be really exciting for the panel to review, to kind of see what an intern might be able to be a part of. So you'll want to spend some time there. Learning objectives, you'll be asked to list them. And really what we're looking for, it doesn't match. So sometimes folks will put learning objectives that are not rooted in the project proposal at all. And so you want to make sure that whatever learning objectives that you've identified for the intern, and like somebody shared earlier, that being a really great opportunity to set the tone for a great internship, make sure that it matches your proposal, right? So your learning objectives should be tied to that. And last but not least, this question I think kind of explains itself, but we are looking for the supervisor's qualifications to supervise and mentor the intern. So have they supervised interns in the past? You know, do they work with other interns within the agency that are not funded by our department? You know, you're going to want to speak to some of that because the panel does review that closely as we're looking to evaluate which organizations to bring into the program. Two additional questions on the application that I want to note that were added last year. The first question invites you to think about how about your recruitment practices. What can you do to ensure a diverse applicant pool? Note that some organizations who have participated in this program for years and who have fallen into patterns regarding how they rely on their networks have really struggled with this. So maybe that every year, you know, they kind of just expect that students will come and apply, and so they don't really have to think about it. But we're asking, what are you going to do? How are you going to be intentional? How are you canvassing to a wide audience of students? We are asking about that. And it's good to start thinking about that early, right? You know, obviously these interns won't be with you for many months, maybe for some of you, you know, a year or so, but you should be thinking about, okay, if we're awarded, how are we going to move forward and make sure we get the right kind of candidates for this position? And note that if you are funded, there may be some additional discussion we may have at supervisor orientation to kind of walk you through some of this. In terms of the second question, we want to know how you think about mentorship within your organization. As I mentioned previously, we recognize the need to make our goals and intentions around the mentorship aspect of this program more explicit. So this provides a space for you to reflect on your organizational attitude and philosophy towards welcoming a new person into your space for a relatively short amount of time, right? So make sure that you're kind of thinking about that as you're answering these questions. So I see a question coming in. With COVID, some of our work has increased. Can you request to have 2 interns working on the same project? No, you cannot. So every internship proposal needs to be unique. We do not want 2 interns doing the same thing at the same organization. We understand that there's a lot to do. But again, wanting to be mindful of, is this a staffing gap or is this an internship experience, right? It's okay to put an intern in an area where you need a lot of work. But if I'm hearing, okay, well, we might need 2 interns to do this work, you know, you're going to need to adjust some of that to think through how can we have 1 intern do this with the support of staff. So, you know, we want to make sure we're providing varied opportunities for students all throughout the county. And so your organization should be submitting a unique proposal. And I think I'm about to say that in just a second. So great question. Okay, and then just really quickly here, these 2 questions you see on your screen are the questions we will ask you if you indicate interest in hosting a community college student. And they're really geared at understanding your existing connections with community colleges. So in the application, again, if you are requesting 3 internships, you must be willing to host a community college student. But if you're only hosting 1 or 2, you can still stand up and say, hey, Martin, we would love to join you in this effort. We would love to recruit from the community colleges. And so there's just a couple of questions that we ask there so that on our end, we understand kind of where you're coming from. Do you already know people at the community colleges? Do you have a partnership with the community colleges? So you'll be asked to speak to these 2 questions as part of that in the application. So, you know, we're like this last section here that I'm about to get into is actually navigating the online application. But before we do that, just some final reminders about deadlines. The deadline to apply is Wednesday, October 28th, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. There will be no exceptions. We are hoping to notify organizations of their grant awards by the middle of February. Contracts will be due by the by the beginning of March. And that first launch date, that's when the first group of folks is going to be able to recruit interns, will be posted online on April 1st, 2021. Okay, so we're going to jump in now to a discussion about our online grant system. And as I mentioned, all of the questions for this application are available on our website, so please take a look at those ahead of time. In the year, this year, because we didn't have enough going on, we also transitioned our grant system. So for the past couple of years, we had been using Fluid Review, and this year we are in SurveyMonkey Apply for all of our grants. So for those of you that have started OGP or CIEG applications, everybody, in addition to internship, is in that new SurveyMonkey Apply system, and you can access it using the link here that I have on the presentation. Just some tips before we get started. You are going to be creating a profile for your organization that's actually an individual account, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but that's just important to note. Everybody within your organization, if you leave, for example, should be able to access that account. So please save your email and password in a place that you can easily access it and share it to other folks who might need to work on applications. We really suggest drafting your application responses in Word and then just copying and pasting things into the application. That way, if for some reason the Apply program has an issue, you don't lose that data, you have it backed up. It also helps for future years, right? When you're applying for this grant next year or the year after, you know, it's an easy way to access your application information. And again, we ask that you submit your grant early so that you don't have any technical issues. There is, unfortunately, sometimes time when our grant systems have gone down the day before or the day of deadlines, and so you want to make sure that you're spending the time to get that taken care of early so that you don't have to worry about any glitches like that. Okay, so just jumping right in, this is going to be kind of brief so we can end with some more questions. But important to note, if you had an account in the Fluid Review system, all of your information, your account information, not your grant information, your account information was automatically moved over to Apply. They took care of it. So if you are a returning applicant, and I don't think I have a slide here, but if you're a returning applicant, you're going to click that login button and log in with your Fluid Review account information. So your same email and password. Once you get in, you might be prompted to do a couple of setup steps, but most of the time, once you log in under that account, it'll open up your new account and Apply. You can kind of click around and mess with it. It's very straightforward. If you are a new organization, I'm going to take you briefly through the steps of registering, okay? So if you do not have an account listed with us, with your previously used email address, you're going to click this green register button and complete the registration steps. As a reminder, we encourage your organization to only have one account per organization. So whoever the development person is, they can have that account. You should not have multiple accounts for multiple organizations. You can just share that login information with who needs it, and just make sure that everybody who needs it has access to that information. So you're going to click the green registration button, and then if you and then you're going to complete the registration. So it's going to ask you your first name, your last name, the email that you would want to use, the password, as well as the confirmed password. Once you get into the system, you're going to create an account. You're going to get a verification email from SurveyMonkey Apply pretty instantaneously. And until you verify that email, you're going to have this box right here that says your email has not been verified. You're going to have this box open or up on your portal until you go in and verify that email address. So you're going to want to go ahead and take care of that as soon as possible. When you first log in addition to seeing this verification box, you're going to see, to get started, fill out your eligibility profile. In order to see any of our grants, you do need to fill out that eligibility profile, and you're going to, in that, select organization and then select the type of organization that you are. So I'm getting to that. I'm going to pull that up right here. So as you can see, you're going to select organization. You're going to select the type of organization, and then answer the questions based off of what type of organization you select. So one of the options, just to highlight, is a school district. Let's say that you're a 501c3 nonprofit and you accidentally click school district and then come down here and click this Save Profile button. That will tell SurveyMonkey Apply that you're a school district and you shouldn't be able to see internship because school districts are not eligible to apply. Some of the other options are 501c3 nonprofit, a municipality, a fiscally sponsored organization. If you select one of those three and complete the user setup, then you will be able to see the internship program as well as OGP and CIAG, because our settings are set so that you have to be a 501c3, you have to be a municipality, or you have to be a fiscally sponsored organization in order to see those applications. So it's really, really important that you set that up correctly and answer those questions accordingly. So once you fill out the eligibility profile, once you go back to this programs button up here, that's when you'll be able to see all of the programs to apply. So don't freak out when you first go in. It's going to say you have no programs available. You'll have to fill out that eligibility section first in order to be able to see the grants, and you have to mark, you know, the appropriate type of organization in order to be able to see those grants. In the future, if you're interested in updating that information, you know, it does happen sometimes where people need to change the name associated with the account or the email. You will do that by clicking the name of the account in the upper right-hand corner and then clicking My Account. That will take you to your account settings, which you see here. And you have a number of options. My Profile, this is where you can change the photo, the first and last name, the email, the time zone, the password. If you need to transfer the account to somebody else, you'll do that in the My Profile. Notifications is where you can set your settings for Apply to email you within the within the system about different things that happen. This is not email reminders to your inbox. This is emails in the SurveyMonkey Apply system. So just a note there. And then your eligibility profile. So again, if you click here, this eligibility button, this is where you can make changes. Again, it's very uncommon for folks to have to make changes here, but maybe your address changes, maybe your organization's address moves. You would want to go back and access that information. And again, you're doing that by clicking your name in the upper right-hand corner and then clicking My Account. That will take you to these settings where you can make those updates. So once you do the eligibility section and you tell it, for example, that you are a you know, arts or 501c3 nonprofit organization, and you come back to the My Programs tab, you're going to be able to see whatever applications are open and available to you at this time. So right now, CIAG, OGP, and Arts Internship are all open, and so you know, would be able to see that. Under the internship program application page, this is what you're gonna see. And this green Apply button is what you're gonna hit in order to create an application. You are creating a new application for every position that you are requesting. So if you want 3 positions, you need to click this green Apply button, you know, a total of 3 times in order to create 3 separate applications, and every single application must be submitted before the end of the, you know, before the deadline on October 28th in order to be considered. What you will notice is this gray button right here will tell you how many applications you have open. So right now under this test account, I have 2 applications open. If I wanted to create a third account, I would, a third internship proposal, I would just need to click that Apply button and create a third one. It will not let you create more than 3 applications. So just keep that in mind. Once you hit that third application, you will be done with that. I do just wanna note the way we have it set up in Apply. Once you complete your first internship proposal and you submit it, you will be able to reuse information in future, in your other applications. So let's say you're requesting 3 positions. Once you submit that first position, there are multiple forms that you will be able to just reuse data for those second and the third positions. That it is intended to save you some time, but there is one form, which is the project proposal form in the application, that you will need to fill out differently for every single position. So you're going to be able to save time on most of the forms after you submit that first one, but there is one form, the project proposal form, that will not allow you to reuse information. You are submitting a unique proposal for every single position. So this gets at the question I was asked a little bit earlier. We do want to see a unique position for every type of proposal, and you're doing that 1, 2, or 3 times in the application. So what will happen is when you get to a section that you can reuse, you'll click into it and it'll say, hey, you've already filled this form out. Do you want to use this information? You hit yes, it'll auto-populate it, you can submit it and move on to the next form. So again, we're hoping it's pretty intuitive and easy to use, and that it does save your organization a little bit of time in the application process, as obviously something like the Community College Initiative. If you say to us, yes, Martin, we want help, or we want to help with the Community College Initiative, we want to host community college interns, you know, we don't need you to manually type that out 3 times. You can just reuse it from the first internship position you submitted. And again, hopefully it saves you a little bit of time. This is in wrapping up here, this is my contact information. Please send emails if you have questions to the arts internship inbox. I try to keep these things a little bit separate from my personal email, just so that you know, I can kind of keep a better track on things. So please send the questions to internship@arts.lacounty.gov. And this year, because we can't be in person, we have instituted some virtual office hours, and I believe I have office hours every Wednesday and Friday through the 6-week application window for internships. Please use the link. I just dropped it into the chat here. Please use this link to schedule some virtual office hours with me. What will happen is you'll get access to my calendar, and you can pick a 15-minute time slot to sit down and talk with me. I'll give you a call at that point. You'll just provide a number. I'll give you a call and we can talk through any questions that you may have. All I ask is that you come with clear questions about what it is you're looking to answer on the application, or what issues you're having, so that I can support you in that. We've been using Calendly, the application I just put in the chat, for a couple of months now, and it seems to be really easy. It's definitely easy on my end, and we've also heard for grantees it's much easier as well. So in addition to shooting me an email, scheduling those office hours with me is a really great way for us to discuss. And you know, it may be that if you send me a question that might be better served in discussing over the phone, I might kick you over to my office hours and ask you to schedule some time so that we can discuss. Please take advantage of them. I'm already on week 2, I think, and I haven't had anybody take advantage of it yet, which means I'm probably in for a busy October. But please take advantage of these office hours, because it's a really great way for me to sit down and give you my undivided attention for 15 minutes. So please take advantage of that if that's something that you need. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. So I'm gonna take some questions. I see there's one in here. So please feel free to add some more questions if you are interested. The question here is, do you have a list of the colleges that you recruit? We don't have a list publicly available, but what I can tell you is that last year, just literally weeks before the pandemic, I did a whirlwind tour of 7 community colleges that ranged from Long Beach City College all the way up to Antelope Valley College. And then I went all the way from Santa Monica to Santa Monica College on the west side to East Los Angeles College on the east side. And the students are really hungry for these opportunities. You know, and we do a lot to push it out to the community college faculty so that they push it out to their students. But, you know, we want to make sure that the organizations are actually ready and willing and excited to host them. Those are the areas, those are just some of the schools that we've worked really hard to build relationships with. I can add to that list Valley College, or excuse me, LA Mission College in the Valley, as well as LACC in downtown. You know, we've worked really hard with about 7 community colleges at this point, and we're really grateful for their partnership. So that's who's on the on the docket. I don't know what my ability is going to be to go to these colleges next year. It might all be virtual. You know, we'll see what happens. PCC, Pasadena City College, also a strong partner in the program. They show up every year strongly. A number of students participate from PCC, so we're also very grateful to them in getting the word out. Great question. Any other final questions before we end our time here? Otherwise, I just want to take a minute to thank you all. It's not, you know, lost on us how many things your organizations are going through right now. And so for taking the time to listen about what this opportunity is going to look like next year, and also just to start to formulate you know, your internship proposals, we really, really appreciate it. And, you know, this program would not be possible without all of y'all's participation and commitment to the program. So we're really, really indebted to you all for joining us in this. Take advantage of my office hours if you need it. You know, again, this program is very different than it's been for 20 years. So if you run into questions or you need to talk something out, please let me know, and I'm happy to discuss those things. And thank you for all the positive feedback. Super excited. Thank you, Christina, former intern. Love that. Welcome back. Welcome into the program on the other side. That's really wonderful. We're happy to have you. So that concludes my presentation. I will be posting this online. So if you would like a refresher, please look for it over the next couple of days. And thank you again, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Please stay safe. And I look forward to reviewing your applications as part of the program over the next couple of months. Take care.